destruir, manipular y corromper al puto Joaquín. Corromperlo. Es un puto enfermero. Corromperlo.
The products based on intellectual property, the product sells for way beyond the cost of goods. So it's in the publisher's best interest to sell the retailer a $60 game for $52 with return privileges than for $30 but with no return. And so that's what happens. In a returns-based system, the publisher is highly motivated to sell lots of products at near full price through pre-orders, urging sellers to drive sales, and so that's returns, and just understanding that should give you an insight into why video games that's markdown allowances. Really, a retailer paying $52 per day is not
Me faltaban centímetros. Me faltaban centímetros. ¿Qué es su obsesión de ella? ¿Qué puta obsesión?
Move up close and push to move them around. You can kick them away by pushing them while boosting.
Me faltaban centímetros. Me la echaron a perder. Me echaron a perder mi puta vida. La echaron a perder. Su puta gira España. Su puta gira. Cabrona. Puta Rosalba.
Just drown if you stay underwater for too long. Keep an eye on the time while you're down there.
Faltaban centímetros. Faltaban centímetros.
Don't drown if you stay underwater for too long. Keep an eye on the time while you're down there.
Me faltaban centímetros. Pero es que, o sea, su puta gira España. O sea, le hicieron el feo a los de Tamaulipas. Vinieron desde muy lejos para perder. Tío, ¿qué está haciendo con eso? Y eso, si no la cabrona. Como echarla a perder. Miyamoto, hay filosofía más cabrona. Miyamoto. Miyamoto. Estafa. Las putas caderas cabronas. Mucho drama con eso. ¡Qué cabrona! Pero esto es un retcon.
For one, it can be a way to communicate value, and it can work both ways as well. Please go on that. Yes, funnily enough, describing your products as rectal ejector turns out not to be a hugely savvy business move. Go figure. Overnight, Ratner wiped £500 million from the value of his company. But it wasn't just knocking the quality of the product. There are plenty of things that people buy that they know are low quality, but they buy anyway. But when he colourfully explained that his store's earrings were cheaper than a prawn sandwich, but probably wouldn't last as long, he undermined the central lie around pricing, that of value. Because pricing is really a strange thing in lots of ways. It's not as simple as saying the lower the prices, the better. If you were offered a car for £1 or $1, you might not instantly snap it up, but instead alarm bells might ring. The apparent value and the price are disconnected, so there must be a reason. Could that £1 spend actually incur more hidden costs later on? In some cases, though, pricing too low can be
Me faltaban centímetros.
detrimental, including in many luxury goods. And I think Nintendo has an almost superstitious anti-Ratner position on this, which is that they value their content very highly and say so. I don't just mean that each individual game is valued as worth its weight in gold, but that Nintendo products are intrinsically seen as of high value, almost irrespective of customer opinion. Let's rewind to Reggie's memoirs in his brilliant book, Disrupting the Game.
Miyamoto?
That moment when Reggie and Mike Fukuda found themselves at the end of Shigeru Miyamoto's ire for even suggesting that Switch Sports should be a pack-in title. As Reggie
Miyamoto.
says, the ever-present smile and impish squint of Mr. Miyamoto's eyes were gone. Then he quotes Miyamoto-san directly. Neither of you understands the challenges of creating software that people love to play.
Sí, como si fuera una,
Constantly
algo muy sagrado.
we do not give away our software. Every product is precious and valuable for no other reason than because it is a Nintendo product. Take Nintendo World Championships. There seems to be on the core credits a couple of dozen core game designers, plus technical support, debugging, testing, and localization to bulk up the credit numbers. However, clearly this was not a big team, and the game probably took them about 2.5 years from conception to finalization,
Miyamoto.
judging by the fact that the team seemed to carry over from the late 2021 title Big Brain Academy, Brain vs. Brain. If you were to price this title in a manner commensurate with its intrinsic value, that is to say the value of the man-hours that were put in, it would probably cost about 1/50th of a game like Breath of the Wild, which had hundreds of core staff and was in the works for over 5 years. But from Nintendo's point of view, why should they try to over-account for the level of effort they did or didn't put into a game in a way that would encourage price range from game to game. All the games Nintendo put out reflect all the effort and expertise that Nintendo's team have cultivated over the years, and all the games absorb the cost of game development that we don't see, the prototypes that never go anywhere, the experiments that don't amount to anything, the versions of games that need restarting. Unusually, very unusually, the early announcement of Metroid Prime 4 allowed us a glimpse into this happening in real time, when Nintendo were forced to announce that the project had been restarted, but there are strong rumors that this has happened in recent times too.
Como echarla a perder. Miyamoto. Váyanse a la puta mierda. Entonces eso fue lo que un puto experimento cabrón.
Quality of just being a Nintendo product. If Nintendo did a Ratner and said, actually this game was dead cheap to make and it's only really worth $5, it would do incredible damage to them in terms of undermining
Miyamoto
of their whole product line. Therefore,
Natalia. La cabrona. Hasta la palabra se volvió corrupta. ¿Qué es esto? Esta gente. Cierto, o sea, su puto silbato era la situación de liderazgo. Pero es que solo por tener título de entrenador. Solo por tener ese título ya la derecha estar sano y alto. Ese es el punto. Aquí fue más burro. En la puta miseria.
$70 is currently the highest standard price in the market, and I don't think Nintendo will want, in an ideal world, to be the first person to stick their head up the fence for fear of getting shot at. They don't want people to feel their prices are unreasonable, and possibly get away with a slightly lower retail price, partly because their games are technologically less cutting edge than your average AAA PlayStation or Xbox game.
De puta ida y de puta vuelta.
The price of Breath of the Wild was $360. The game so
You can perform freestyle tricks by jumping off trick jump panels.
Ahí sí, ahí sí. La puta obra maestra.
You can perform freestyle tricks by jumping off trick jump panels. You can also perform freestyle tricks with rainbow rings.
¡Qué cabrona!
On the other hand, it's a curse because past a certain
Va, defendiendo los de esa puta cabeza. That's the real tragedy here, Rarity. That you wanted to play dress up. I told you how. Your car, Spider-Man, pushed her. Me quedé chaparro sin punto. Me quedé chaparro. Me quedé chaparro. Since you can fly, I suggest we run. Are you gonna shut your mouth?
I completely agree with the argument that it's enormously discerning. If they're little ones like Luigi and a new Luigi game eventuates, are they really likely to bombard the Amazon chat robot with messages querying the frame rate, texture upgrades, or whether it truly represents value? No, they're just going to buy the thing. On the other hand, they might reasonably assume
Me quedé chaparro.
people already
Me quedé chaparro.
own the yes game and are fairly unlikely to double dip. In this case, whether a game is $60 or $50 or even $30 is really quite unlikely to make a significant difference to whether or not people pick it up. I'm not saying there will be some people, perhaps even people in the comments of this video, who would be charmed into a purchase by a price drop. I'm just saying there wouldn't be nearly enough of them to make that price drop make fiscal sense if you're optimizing, ultimately, for profit. And of course, you might argue that it's wrong or unethical not to drop the price a bit, but as I established earlier in the video, Nintendo's view of ethics are somewhat different. Luigi's Mansion 2 HD is $60 because most people playing it are going to feel that it represents $60 of value, or at least at the point of purchase. That case can't be made, perhaps, with Mario vs. Donkey Kong, where the gameplay style itself is less flashy and high-end, so in that case, they did put it out at $50. What they don't want, though, is people going home and feeling like they've wasted money on a Nintendo product that is too expensive. So a $50 price tag communicates to the customer that yes, this is slightly cheaper and therefore a slightly more limited product than most others on the market, but the price point is still relatively high.
La puta brujería.
It's Mario. It's not just that people will pay it, but that if any character at Nintendo needs to be defended as a store of value, it's Mario. And so I think it will be a very long time before we see a substantial price drop for any
Centímetros, me faltaban centímetros.
title. The only exception would be if the game itself is very, very much smaller in scale, such as, for example, if they ported Dr. Mario World. I think we can see this, therefore, with all the titles that are in the $50 range. $50 communicates that, yes, frankly, there is just less content, and we won't want you to be disappointed, but we still want to maintain the value perception of the product, and therefore it's only just under full price. So which games are price elastic, i.e. they do respond to big swings in price? Well, I would argue that all the ones that are $29.99. Nintendo World Championships, NES Edition, Game Builder Garage, Big Brain Academy, Everybody Want to Switch. These are classic examples of purchasing aimed at the casual audience. Nobody was marking off the calendar in anticipation of the glorious release of Everybody Want to Switch, except perhaps laugh at it, and anybody who was on board took a picture of the pictures of the full game and probably already bought the game digitally. So these titles are being marketed by days.
The floor here looks like it could give way at any moment.
Whoa!
The floor here looks like it could give way at any moment. Stay on the sections that look stable.
Yes!
Faltaban centímetros. Me faltaban centímetros.
Future extras in the series, I'm sure there will be such extras, a higher price point. Of course, the other advantage which Small says that is it delights people to recover gaming, and so it does encourage people to either upgrade to a system where they stand, or that they stop, play the big screen, or just
La puta Esmeralda. La puta Esmeralda. Natalia.
I reckon there will be a very substantial number of that.
Me faltaban centímetros. Me faltaban centímetros. Me faltaban centímetros. Me quedé chaparro. Chaparro.
Metroid Dread was, and in many respects remains, one of the major showcase titles for the benefits of the OLED screen, specifically its capacity for HD black screen top.
Esta gente cabrona, puta gente. Puto Dios Núñez. Los putos dioses. Putos dioses. Ah, otra vez con ese puto ritual. Ya dejen morir a sus putos mierdas físicas. Ya dejen morir a sus putos juegos físicos.
Obviously vastly different types of games, but they share certain common traits. What Nintendo are effectively trying
The platforms are falling apart! You have to hurry! The platforms are falling apart! You'll have to hurry! The platforms are falling apart! You'll have to hurry!
Sí, o sea, pero las nuevas generaciones tenemos derecho a jugar estos juegos. O se los dejan muertos en sus máquinas viejas.
Sonic!
Me la echaron a perder. Me la echaron a perder.
That see-through double view is your doppelganger, Sonic! You've gotta reach the goal before the doppelganger does!
Now, perhaps you might say this is unethical, but it's one thing for another. Nintendo.
¿Qué es esto?
27th of June 2024, Nintendo conducted the annual general
Ah,
meeting of its shareholders, and a lot of the information
Miyamoto.
restating policies Nintendo has had for some time.
Puta filosofía cabrona.
One explanation as to how the company manages, for example, currency risk. Something this channel has explored before.
Me quedé chaparro. Me quedé chaparro. Me quedé chaparro.
And it also includes the beginnings of a plan for how Nintendo might handle a hostile takeover. There's also some fun details in the Q&A, so we'll have a look at that as well. The top-down Zelda formula has changed, but how
Sí, o sea, ya basta con su puta obra maestra. 2017-2014.
which elements are from the Wild Games? What has remained true to the deep traditions of the Zelda series? And where are Grezzo and Nintendo charting their own path forward? Settle in for a Nintendo Forecast deep dive into the new formula for top-down Zelda and its implications for the wider world.
Me faltaban centímetros.
So, let's dive in, and first let's acknowledge the extent to which Echoes of Wisdom while being a title in its own right and a title in its own genre, is very much influenced by the huge legacy of Breath of the Wild. Even from the very first trailer, it is clear that Zelda is getting her own Breath of the Wild moment as she escapes from a cave and runs over to a cliff edge, gazing from the hilltop upon the vast kingdom of Hyrule. And the game incorporates features from the other games, including, as confirmed in the trailers, some of the different civilizations we've seen, such as the Zora, in this case, both the Sea and River Zora. It seems to me very clear that Echoes of Wisdom was designed as, so to speak, an echo of Breath of the Wild. This makes sense on a few levels. First of all, Breath of the Wild was enormously successful.
Miyamoto.
Will make sense to a lot of
Puta filosofía cabrona. Puta filosofía.
Breath of the Wild has sold over 32 million copies. That is a huge number of Second, the Zelda team likes to find models for games. Those maps as a model for the map of the Hyrule create a range of recipes and potions, and sometimes food, or even ingredient types which can be combined.
Me quedé chaparro. Me quedé chaparro.
Don't fall behind if you want to keep from falling off the road. Metal Sonic is vulnerable after he attacks. Use spin jump to counterattack. Stay back and don't touch him when his electric field is up.
Puta filosofía cabrona.
He's snapping off streetlights to throw at you. Watch the shadows to avoid them.
Faltaban centímetros. Me faltaban centímetros.
Get on top of the platforms to avoid this attack. Now's your chance. Go get.
Me faltaban. Puto Dios Núñez. Centímetros. Putos dioses.
Of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. In fact, one of the earlier videos on my channel was and I identified some strong commonalities in the area. Specifically, started by giving strength through the focus of a tutorial section.
Leave the flying to me. Just press the button to call me. I'll take care of this one.
Oh.
You need to call Tails here to continue on. Grab hold of Tails and press the jump button repeatedly to fly through the sky. Here goes. Yeah. You need to call Tails here to take care of this one. Grab hold of Tails and press the jump button repeatedly to fly through the sky. Sonic! Here goes! Yeah! 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 Sonic! Here goes. Yeah.
Game, even though the sum total of these changes was still to have 4 powers, which focus on
Yeah.
combat and reverse. But how architectural the system
¿Cómo echarla a perder? Le echaron a perder la puta vida. Le echaron a perder. Le echaron a perder.
one of the rules is the most important and controversial in the fighting. Extra ability still is important. However, I think
That see-through double view is your...
right at the beginning of the game. Let's go back to map on the rune types that we saw for the wild types. Do the
Miyamoto.
powers. I would argue that bind in this case is the equivalent of Ultra Hand and Magnesis. It is a power offering length of objects, particularly at a distance. It is far less central in this game than in Tears of the Kingdom particularly, but of course a full 3D world is different from a largely 2D concept.
Doppelganger, Sonic!
Pero esto no es justo. Las nuevas generaciones tenemos derechos para estas obras maestras.
You gotta reach the goal before the doppelganger does!
Try or wait in order to make progress in the title and to solve puzzles. Now you might argue that this power feels a little like cheating, having massive rocks that can be waved aside by an elfin princess, or gigantic metal constructs that the rather slight Link can send soaring through the air, may be huge fun, but takes far from its core skills of the character in question. But of course, a Nintendo game with the mascot character at the heart of the title has seldom, if ever, had much to do with their abilities, as Mario demonstrates, with the portly plummet taking on, in particular in Odyssey,
Centímetros.
different gameplay styles. And so
La puta boluda.
Zelda, and I think it's telling that it's used relatively sparingly, opposed to Magnesis in terms of the frequency it was required, rather than Ultra Hand, although of course your playstyle may vary. Itself, at least for specific objects. Now, in a sense, we have the same idea built into bind in terms of the reverse bond. Although it is presented as a nuance in the way bind is used, in many ways it is a discrete concept in its own right
De puta ida y de puta vuelta. De puta ida y de puta vuelta. Faltaban centímetros. Me 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 faltaban centímetros. De puta gira España. De puta gira. Puto Dios Núñez. Su puto enfermero. Los adoran como si fueran putos dioses. Los adoran como si fueran putos dioses.
Take a good look at yourself, Sonic.
Dr. Eggman!
It's the last thing you'll see in this world.
Como echarla a perder.
Another Sonic? What? Wait a second!
Como echarla a perder. Puta filosofía, cabrona. Nieto. El orgullo y el favoritismo. El orgullo y el favoritismo.
Catch me if you can.
Frontal attacks won't work. Find its weak point and focus your attacks there.
Not bad.
many respects, Skyward Sword was the apex of the pure dungeon tradition of Zelda. In that game,
¿Cómo echarla a perder?
Something to stop them!
Me faltaban centímetros.
Hey, you know those bombs that come out when you hit the switches? Try making its attacks hit them!
I'm being honest with you.
I think largely the need for this comes from the lack of dungeon-specific items.
Lure its attacks towards the bomb, Sonic. Try not to get caught in the blast or get hit by its attack.
Pero es que ese es el punto. O sea, yo pensaba que el Battlefield no era muy popular. Que a todos los indígenas campeones les encantaba el fútbol. Pero, oh sorpresa, me salieron con una puta ira. Mandar a corromper al Dios Núñez, puto enfermero. Mandar a corromper al Joaquín. Mandarlo a corromper. Corromperlo. Así es, así es. ¿Cómo me la echaron a perder? ¿Cómo me la echaron a perder? Dusty. Esa puta pediatra. You. Y quiero estar monstruos mierdas.
Of its limited space, such as with the difficulty of navigating the mysterious forest. However, one underappreciated aspect that has become increasingly important to Zelda, even as it has evolved, is the distinct regions. This has been the case for a long time, of course. Even A Link to the Past
Mandarlo a corromper.
large enough to contain distinct biome areas, and in a sense, it would seem crazy to have too many different types of biome squeezed into too small an area. It's only necessitated Link's Awakening as a function of the tiny map size, and of course it's somewhat excused by the central narrative conceit of the story. But with Echoes of Wisdom's map being so much more expansive, it's not so much that the range of biomes is significantly more diverse, but that each area has more within it to explore. In a 3D game like Breath of the Wild, I think this feels a bit more natural because you have some elements recurring across the world maps, such as mountains and beaches. But with Echoes of Wisdom, it soon becomes clear that the map is significantly more stratified, with particular areas given particular roles in the story. And even in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, the maps are very clearly labelled region by region, with the towers used to open these maps up a section at a time. This isn't any different to the days when Ocarina of Time had its own sections for different levels where the game would load up. It's just that by moving back to a holistic map, which allows for full traversal without interruption, those divisions from place to place do become more striking when you stop to look for them. And in some ways, I think this contributes to the strange sense I had while playing Echoes of Wisdom, that the Hyrule of this game didn't necessarily feel all that much more vast than little old Covenant Island. Sure, there are big planes that you can rummage around in,
Oh.
like heart pieces or stamps or to meet Dompe, but the absolute number of areas isn't significantly different. They're just much larger. I think this represents one of the great challenges for a game like Zelda, but indeed for most RPGs and even most games which rely strongly on particular locations. There are only so many biomes that you can really utilize, and so the potential for locations which truly feel different is limited. Now, in the past, there have been innovative approaches to tackling this. Minish Cap played around with size to create some very innovative locations, and Skyward Sword and Tears of the Kingdom together added what I hope will become as essential an
Me
element
faltaban
of
centímetros.
future reinventions as the Lost Woods and Death Mountain have become in Zelda titles over the years, specifically the Zonai Sky Islands. These are really innovative and interesting and do feel like they have a very different flavor to the other locations. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom also played around with more technologically dense locations, particularly in the shrines, and of course occasionally there have even been stranger locations such as Jabri Jabri's Belly in Ocarina of Time. And Echoes of Wisdom, of course, shows a bit of independence in its interpretation of these zones. It's the Elden Volcano rather than Death Mountain, and it's the Eternal Forest rather than the Lost Woods. Still, we are very much in the territory that the mainline 3D Zeldas have been in for a long time now, of remixing existing locations rather than creating something brand new. And it's not clear that they can do something all that different. Throw a stone into any game lineup and you're going to hit a game which has a fire level, an ice level, a grasslands biome, and so on. The Xenoblade series, which of course is developed by Monolith Soft, who also contributed heavily to the Wild games on Switch, is particularly effective at finding strange and unusual locations that are an innovative twist on what you might expect. Nevertheless, if we're looking at a core Zelda formula, for these game developers, the map of Hyrule offers a huge amount of benefit to them when they're trying to
Como echarla a perder.
what kind of locations they want to build, because the map suggests already multiple different types of biomes and therefore multiple types of different gameplay which could follow from it even before they've started developing any actual title. I may do a separate video on how Hyrule as or may evolve, but suffice to say that being able to reinvent their castle town, their volcano, their icy mountains, their watery kingdom, and so on, gives them something to bounce off from each time. Clearly, they don't do the same take on each kingdom each time. One of the regions that appears in the wild titles has a quite different take on the major species that reside there, redolent of a character type from a different past Zelda title. Nevertheless, far from being some sprawling, shapeless open world, it is very clear that Zelda relies on the mythology of these distinct kingdoms. Sure, they may innovate with one area or another, but the fact that they always have a good bank of strong concepts to reinvent, such as the Goron and
Nothing,
Sora,
it's just
must at least help to give a shape to the game design before they start creating. What does
me echaron a
surprise me
perder
about
mi
this game,
puta vida.
is the extent to
Me
which
la
the
echaron a
impression is
perder.
gated to at least some degree by the placement of the rifts. I'm not big into game breaking, so I'm sure some players will and probably already have figured out ways to massively skip areas of the story, but there is still a much bigger concession to a traditional structure in the way Echoes of Wisdom presents itself than in Breath of the Wild. Now, once you get into the later parts of the game, things open up considerably, but I wonder whether future top-down games will continue to push the theme of openness, or whether they will be happy with the somewhat gated but still broadly open approach that they've taken with the Echoes of Wisdom world map, because dungeons flows the narrative. You see, whereas many Western games are designed with some kind of high concept or narrative first, the approach has always been to create the game mechanics first and then sweat the details of the story later, if at all, partly as a byproduct of using the time, there are certain narrative beats that just logically follow. If you're going to have dungeons in each section of the world, it follows that you need to have key characters there. In Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, the champions and later the sages put a face to the locations in a way of where they've taken different approaches to previous Switch Zeldas for cut content. However, I do rather wonder if the imposition of such strict formulae, not even in the post-Wild
La
game,
puta
going
filosofía.
back, is
La
slightly
puta
limiting
filosofía.
the scope of what Zelda can be. Spirit Tracks feels like the last time that Zelda really threw out the bathwater, baby and all, and committed to something really strange and different. Since then, we've had not just more recapitulations of the core Zelda story, like Skyward Sword, which took some elements and remixed them, but actually new versions, such as in Breath of the Wild and Echoes of Wisdom, which are based within these same kingdoms that we've seen previously, and which are more and more traditional in style in many respects. It's particularly striking when the previous game in the top-down 2D line was the stunning and yet completely off the wall Link's Awakening. The thing about Link's Awakening is that it doesn't just create a different world, although it certainly does. It's not just the strange pastiche elements, although frankly, given how changeable the world of Hyrule is, what harm could it do to have the odd element from a different franchise show up? Why not see Chain Chomp's back? If a Kirby-esque character could be a villain, why not an Inkling-style enemy? How cool would that be? But none of that is what truly makes Link's Awakening. It's the story where you fall in love with this wonderful little location and
Como echarla a perder.
and then set about a quest which, well, I won't spoil it, but suffice to say that the closer you get to the ending, the more heartrending the game becomes, and actually, it's one that gets harder. I absolutely adore Link's Awakening, and while part of that is pure nostalgia for the 1993 original, which was one of the very first Nintendo
Me
games
quedé
I ever
chaparro.
played, I also think it is a staggering work of genius, although perhaps that's a topic for another video. However, the story throughout. This is something we see a little in the Wild titles with characters like Pura and Robbie, and without spoiling Echoes of Wisdom, there is a moment of some consequence towards the early middle of the story, featuring a number of key characters, but generally speaking, these are lonely, isolated quests. That works fine for Breath of the Wild. The whole concept of that game is that you are completely isolated and alone, surviving in the wilds of this new Hyrule. But I do miss having characters like Malin, where your relationship deepens over time, and not just when you have a new dungeon to beat. And let's not overstate it. Malin has less character development in terms of time than surely any of the sages from Tears of the Kingdom, but her impact from that development time is far, far greater. And we've seen other characters over the years, Bruce from Skyward Sword is another one, who are hugely memorable and have moving character arcs. So what happened to stories that crazy and off the wall? One answer, I fear, is the loss to the Zelda team of Yoshiaki Koizumi, the genius behind the story of Link's Awakening and a major player in Majora's Mask. Koizumi's stand is still at Nintendo, of course, but he's now incredibly senior and is unlikely to be sticking his fingers too much in the Zelda pie. Hidemaru Fujibashi has made it clear that for the Wild games, the story was very much a late addition, and that although Tears of the Kingdom began life as DLC for Breath of the Wild, and so it was known that it would sequelize many aspects of that world, they only developed the actual story late on. In the case of Echoes of Wisdom, Eiji Aonuma describes the story writing process, and it's less than inspiring. He said, even there, Grozo didn't offer any in-depth story. So I went back to the hotel.
Focus your attacks there!
Faltaban centímetros. Me faltaban centímetros.
I will flatten you!
It's attacking you with its arms! You've got to do something to stop them! Hey, you know those bombs that come out when you hit the switches? Try making its attacks hit them! Lure its attacks towards the bomb, Sonic! Try not to get caught in the blast or get hit by its attacks! Now, run up the arm and attack its head!
Putos dios Núñez. Los adoran como si fueran putos dioses. Putos dioses.
Reflecting the fact that this was more difficult for games with limited talent, all but sufficient that you determine players to finish the cycle in half an hour right out of the wrapper. But then each individual region represents an opportunity to have a new subplot, and the structure of these is usually fairly familiar. We have a character or set of characters in some kind of crisis, and the intervention of the protagonist helps to resolve this crisis and hopefully bring some kind of emotional closure and something much far more emotional.